Now, what we just saw with visual scripting is that when we program something on our computer, we basically use instructions or commands to force the computer to do something. An example for that would be a jump command, which lets the player jump, or a move command that moves the player in a certain direction. It could also be just a command that prints something to the console. So this is the basic building block of every programming language. Now, up until now, we've been using visual scripting, and that's all nice and dandy. However, you are very limited when you only use visual scripting. Now, let me show you why. This is an image of a visual script for not even a big game, but a decently small game. And you should already be able to see that this is horrible. You have no way to determine what happens here in the code. So yeah, that's really a problem in visual scripting, that things get very clunky and you lose every sense of order after basically only a few days of work. Usually that's what happens. So if you are serious about learning game programming, don't limit yourself to visual scripting. You need to learn programming, hard, real programming with text in a console. That's the hard truth, and that's just the reality of our everyday life. Visual scripting has its place, but it's usually only done kind of like by people who are not too much in the tech, like the game designers who can't program that well, but they still need to, tweak the quests and combine a few things that we programmers provide for them. So that's where visual scripting has its place. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about programming languages. A programming language is just a language like English or German or French or whatever language. Yeah? Languages for people are just in order to communicate between different cultures, kind of. Yeah. Languages for computer programs serve a similar purpose. Each language has its strengths and its weaknesses and is usually kind of developed to serve a certain purpose. We will use the language C#, which is the default language for the Unity engine. If you want to use, for example, the Unreal Engine, you will have to use C++. So that's just a different language that works a little bit different, actually quite different than C#, but many things are also very similar. So for example, you have if conditions in both languages. Also, you have loops in both languages and so on. So those basic concepts stay the same, but the way you write the code differs slightly. Now, the reason we need programming languages is that as of the time I'm recording this, computers don't understand any human language. And by understand, I don't mean Google Translate understand. I mean really understand what's the meaning of a sentence that I write into it. So we need programming languages kind of as a bridge between humans and the computer. So a programming language is basically just a set of rules, and it's really a language like English or German that specifies certain rules, how we can tell a computer what it should do. That's what a programming language does. And then there's kind of a program on the computer that's called a compiler. And this compiler then takes this text file where I specified all the commands that I want the computer to execute and turns them into a binary file with only zeros and ones. That's very simplified, but that's how you can imagine it. And the computer then understands what it has to do when you open this binary file. Okay, so that's like a very simple explanation of how you can imagine what happens when we create code and how it is then executed on the computer. Now let's compare something we wrote in code.org to an equivalent in C#. The thing that's very similar is that in both languages you have a sequential order of instructions or commands that you want the computer to perform. And what's different in C# is that it's plain text. So you write this basically in a text file. And what's also different is that each code line, or even more specific, each command that you write needs to be followed by a semicolon. And this semicolon is absolutely crucial and important. And beginner programmers tend to forget this. A semicolon always ends a command. So when there is a semicolon, the computer knows, all right, this command is now finished. If you forget the semicolon and just start a new line, the computer will think that the command continues in the next line, because in C# you can have commands that go over multiple lines. And we also really like to use that, as we will see in later examples. But every command that a computer executes needs to be ended with a semicolon, at least in C#. I mean, there are other programming languages like Python, for example, where you don't need this semicolon. Now, and that's it with a crash course on the fundamentals of programming languages.